Hi, guys. Neal Brennan, it's the Blocks Podcast. My guest today is a guy I've known a little bit for a long time. He's a performer and writer. You would know him from The Nightly Show on Comedy Central, and now he makes appearances on Bill Maher's show, and he's got a podcast called Black on the Mic.
Black on the Air.
Black on the Air. I'm freestyling this.
It's all good.
He was the creator of the PJs, which you haven't thought about in a while. The co-creator of Bernie Mac?
Co-creator of the PJs, creator of the Bernie Mac show. Co-creator of Insecure.
Great.
Helped launch Blackish. Co-creator of Grownish. Wrote and produced first 3 seasons of The Office. Senior black correspondent on The Daily Show. Worked on many TV shows, all that kind of stuff.
And arrogant about it. I'm kidding.
Did Obama's last White House correspondence.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
That was good.
Just got a note from the president saying that if you want another drink, you should order it now because the bar will be closing down. Of course, he said the same thing about Guantanamo, so you have at least another 8 years. So, yeah.
Larry Wilmore is what I'm trying to say. Larry Wilmore is here,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to have him. You have your blocks, which I'm happy you cooperated. You gave them to me. You've seen the block special. You understand what it's about.
Yes.
A lot of people big time me. They won't give me blocks.
Really? That was their blocks, is they don't want to do blocks.
They don't want to. It seems like homeworking, but it makes it more interesting.
Yeah. Is that
not
a power
bad
play? Is that a power
no,
play?
just like Seth Meyers did. I mean, like a good friend. I knew his blocks anyway,
Right.
but it was like he just didn't do the homework.
Yeah.
A guy who makes everyone do a pre-interview for his show. It's different when he's the guest, Larry. Anyhow, we're not here to slam Seth. So the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I've known when you were doing the nightly show, I would hear from time to time that you're a little conservative. Now, you would, as you said, you're still considered a libtard by people, by actual conservatives.
Right.
I guess.
Well, I think it's that arm of the people that just like to call names and react online and that type of thing. When you meet people in person, it's different. You know, I've always considered myself, the term I used was passionate centrist, and I always said half the time I disagree with myself.
Yeah,
you know, it's the way that I put it. Because I always said, I have an opinion, but if the facts trump my opinion, then I have to drop my opinion and go with the facts.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my philosophy.
I know.
So I don't have an ideology.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
There's something to be. People think you need to be loyal to your own beliefs, or it's like you have the merch. Like I bought all the shit.
Yeah.
I have all the arguments lined up, and whereas I think it's more interesting to just go like, what do I actually feel about this?
Right. I think you start with a set of beliefs, and sometimes the world confirms that, and sometimes it tells you something that you did not know that can either expand your beliefs.
Are there any that jump to mind in your life that you were sure of, and then you were like, oh?
I don't know if there's something that changed my mind, but there are things that have expanded the things that I thought of, like marriage and children. You know, marriage gave me a completely different idea of how companionship, of even what companionship is.
What did you think it was, and what
I had no idea. It's the thing in my life I was the most clueless about. Everything else I've studied, you know, I've worked at, and that I was not prepared for by any means, you know.
Did you date a lot?
Not really. I kind of did stand-up dating when I was a stand-up. You know?
Bring them to a show, get a drink afterward.
Exactly. You know, you use your comedy.
Don't ask me how I know.
You use your comedy power until it wears off. You know?
You also are. He's a king of the Magic Castle. You're an officer at the Magic Castle.
I am. I'm actually vice president now.
Yes.
At Magic Castle. I perform there and that kind of stuff. So
which is another way nerds control social situations.
Exactly. You know?
Maybe more hostilely than comedy.
It's how I dated a girl back in the day. When I was my early days of stand-up, she was this really hot girl. She was working in the ticket booth, right?
At a comedy?
Newport Beach Laugh Stop. That's kind of where I actually started. I'll say my second start, because I had to stop and start in stand-up. You know?
What years?
This is like 84, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had started a little earlier, but it was one of those things. Funny, I was listening to your talk with Carl Leifer. I had the exact same thing happen to me. I went up at the Comedy Store. This is like 79, maybe, you know, did open mic night. And I didn't have any stand-up, you know, but I did like talent shows in school and that kind of stuff, you know. And I did impressions, you know, and a few jokes here and there. But I had memorized like this rich little thing, not knowing that I couldn't memorize somebody else's thing, right? And so, but I had a lot of confidence, and I went up and I killed. You do 3 minutes as amateur night.
Yeah.
Did great. And they said, oh, we'd like you to come back and do it for the, I'm like, yeah, this is great. Way. I come back the next week. First of all, I was sick as a dog, right? I mean, just had this flu and everything. And
you were like, probably won't matter.
Exactly. But Neal, it couldn't have been more. It was opposite in every single way.
I remember.
Sick was just one of it. But I mean, it was the death of deaths. I have a Daily Show story about this too, but where people don't want to look at you. They don't want to get close to that death. That's what it was like.
They don't even want to get it on. Whatever just happened, they don't want it.
It spooked me from doing it for a few years because I thought, I can't do this. This is too hard.
All right, I want to get back to the companionship thing. So you hadn't really did you have girlfriends?
Not really. I had maybe one during that time, but she lived in Portland. I was in LA, and it was just crazy. There was no reason for us to be together. It was just a mess. But I realized when I look back now, Neal, I had no interpersonal tools for a relationship because my parents were not a good example. They divorced when I was young. My dad was very non-emotional, never showed my mom any emotion and stuff like that. My mom was over-emotional, that type of thing. Their relationship was very, it's just bizarre. And in fact, they divorced back then, but they're actually kind of still together now, in a sense. Yeah. That's how dysfunctional it is.
When my dad died.
It becomes functional after a while.
I was like, they've been divorced, but they're still together.
Exactly. So, not that I can blame everything on them, but... and then how did you, I met girls through stand-up during those years. That was the way that I met women.
And then how did you how long did you date the woman who became your wife?
So when I met her, I was frustrated with dating and everything. I was getting to my late 20s and I'm like, okay, In fact, I used to do a joke about it at the time. I still remember. I said, I've been looking for the right person. And then I started thinking, maybe I'm not the right person. Maybe I'm the wrong person. Maybe I have to start looking for the wrong girl. It's like, how did it go? It's like, what do you do? Lesbian? Yes. Something like that. Where are you from? Prison? Yes. It's that type of thing. But I remember I started doing jokes about being the wrong person and something wrong with me rather than the people. And I remember my roommate at the time. Do you know Bobby Gaylord? Did you ever know Bobby? He was a stand-up. When we moved in together, he was going through a divorce, and he was going to therapy a lot. And he would come home. I would ask him about therapy, and he would share his therapy sessions. So I was kind of getting therapy by proxy a little bit, like I was learning all these things.
But I think that applies to me. Thank you, Bobby. I'm going to give you $5.
I had zero money for
thank you, Bobby Gaylord,
for those types of things. Right? No, it was awesome, and I actually learned a lot in the couple of years he was going to.
That's funny. I think that's what podcasts are for now.
Yeah,
serves the same purpose.
No, you're absolutely right. And so. I realized, and it was funny, I think the acting classes I was taking at the time too helped me turn inward. And one of the things, I wrote down something Empath on there, Sociopath is one of it. One of the things I had realized during that time, it was very difficult for me to have my own emotions, to be okay with them. My parents had split when I was a teenager, and it was one of those things. This was an old saying that people used to say, "You're the man of the house now." That type of thing. Yeah, and it's like, fuck, that puts a lot of emotional pressure on you. Yeah, and I think my emotions shut down then because I had to take care of my mom, who was going through a tough time. She
had the divorce or other
she's
stuff.
Had emotional breakdowns. You know, things like that. It's just really tough on her. There were 6 of us, and I had 2 older sisters, but they were like into drugs and just into trouble, and I was like de facto the oldest. So I felt a lot of weight on my shoulders. So I always say I kind of ended my childhood maybe at 15 and just was more put my feelings aside, And I realized that in my 20s, like I could not get angry and things like that, and I didn't have permission for a lot of my feelings and stuff,
That's interesting that even because men can have very little access to emotions except anger, in my experience. So that you didn't even have that.
No.
You weren't even clear.
It was
you didn't have clearance for anger.
No, I didn't have permission for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For my own anger. I could be angry on someone else's behalf, maybe.
Okay.
But for my own, there's a distinction between that, which is interesting.
So would you just sort of go numb? in situations where you should have been angry?
But when I say empath, I was too understanding of what happened of that person because I was trained to understand somebody's in trouble, somebody's hurting. My thing doesn't count. What's happening over here? So
is that what your mother modeled, or she actually imparted that?
No. I did this all on my own. She did not ask for that or model that.
Okay.
She's not to blame for that. This was me trying to help.
Yeah.
When I look back at it now, I didn't know it at the time.
Did you grow up Christian or anything?
I was Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it.
Sacrificial.
Yeah, I really do. Like, I think about, like, I was going to Google yesterday, am I my brother's keeper?
Yeah.
The Bible says about, I am, right?
You absolutely are.
Because I find myself being sort of nosy.
Right.
And kind of like trying to help.
Right.
And then people don't really like it.
Right.
And I don't think it's helpful long term, maybe.
Well, the thing that is positive for me is if I view my life as a life of service, then that's helpful,
Right.
Because you can never fill that pot. You can always give something. Even when I give people advice in showbiz, I said, don't look at showbiz as something you could get something out of. Look at something you could put something into. Make a contribution to it. Put something there that hasn't been there, And if you operate like that, it's more of a creative way to exist in the business rather than I'm not getting what I want out of it.
Yeah.
It's a little more selfish way, and it's very transactional, and it does sometimes it works, but it can be very frustrating,
That's interesting. So you didn't really know how to have emotions.
I didn't. I couldn't have.
All right, now the question is now would you be autistic? Would you be considered autistic, do you think?
It's possible I could have been on the spectrum. My son has Asperger's, I think my dad is on the spectrum. I really do,
I like how everyone around you is on the spectrum except you. Like,
I said I might be.
Yeah,
I might be. Yeah.
Yeah. But they definitely are, or that's your diagnosis?
Well, my dad's never been diagnosed. He would never admit it. But I think it's possible that he is.
Okay.
My son was diagnosed, and he is. I would be a very high functioning.
Sure, I think a lot of them are. I think I'm on the spectrum. I took the test. I'm the lowest rung, but I'm on it.
Yeah. So I don't have. There are some of the social things I might have, but I played a lot of sports. I was involved in theater, so I did socialize. I wasn't wasn't a self-player type of thing, even though I did do a lot of that too.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until it was a combination of acting classes, therapy by proxy, that I started having permission to have my own emotions. The acting class actually helped a lot because you had to emote and that kind of
and you
stuff
kind of go.
too.
I remember taking acting class and being like, oh. I don't think I've ever felt this myself.
Yeah.
But like, interesting. Okay.
Right. To really tap into how you really feel about something and that kind of stuff. So I really grew as a person during that. And it was after that I was able to attract, the woman who became my wife. So I think I had to go through that. I think you have to be the right person to attract the right person.
Yeah.
Going back to my stand-up idea. I think you're going to attract the version of yourself that's going to push all the buttons. And if you're in the frail button pushing mode, that's not going to be good because you're going to pick that person.
The version of yourself that's going to push their buttons?
No, you will always pick the person who's good at pushing
your buttons.
You're always going to do that.
Yes.
But if you have a proper relationship with those buttons, you're in a better place
what were your
the person
buttons?
Who will push them responsibly.
What were your buttons, or without you reacting? I think that's another big one. It's like, what were your buttons?
Or feeling threatened, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What were your buttons?
I never really thought of it, but looking back, I think providing was a button. If you feel like you're not providing, that goes back to earlier, or not taking care of.
So,
like you're falling short in that arena.
So was it like you should plan dates, you should be more considerate, I
don't know how it manifests itself when I look back at it. And anything, that's the thing that was triggered. Now, it could be something unrelated that could actually trigger that. Mm-hmm. Like one of our big fights when we were married was my wife was very successful as an actor when she was young, and she really wanted to be a mom, and she didn't want to work full time. She wanted to be at home a lot, and I said, hey, I'm for whatever you want to do. You want to work? We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I really want to be a mom most of the time. And she did a lot of voiceover work and that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of resentment built because that's really hard work.
Being a mom?
Oh, being with kids all the time.
It's punitive and relentless.
It's completely, and it really, that pushed a lot of her buttons. I used to do this joke where, this is funny. I have some jokes, that I never really did in stand-up, but they were my favorite jokes. And I just kept them in places. Here's one of them. Never did this in stand-up, but this was it. So I said, when you meet somebody, you're going out with somebody, everybody has baggage, right? No one's feeling. It's just that most of the time, all you have is carry-on baggage. When you date somebody, that's all you have. And you look and you go, oh, they just have carry-on. That's not so bad. I can deal with that.
A backpack.
Yeah,
that's reasonable.
Look, I got nothing. I got a computer bag. I got nothing. But that's all you have is carry-on. When you get married, though, that's when you first go to baggage claim, right? And you go, oh, I didn't know you had that.
Yeah.
Where did this bag come from? All these bags start popping up that you know. You didn't know. And so you have to go through that. And then when you have kids, that's when your lost luggage is delivered to your house. These are bags you didn't even know.
Yeah, that's very funny.
You had completely forgotten that you packed. So children, they unearth all the issues you didn't even know that you had, And so
she
resented me out in the world getting praise and all this stuff because I was getting a lot of success during that time. I was winning awards.
90s.
A lot of stuff was happening, And she was, mainly at home doing that. And she even admitted, there was a lot of resentment. And she would say she wanted an equal partner. And I'm like, equal partner? Who's paying for these trips? And I do my thing. And man, that triggered me when I look back, that I was accused of not doing my job as a provider.
Yeah.
But what she was asking for was something else that I couldn't hear at the time.
What was it?
She needed help in this arena where she did not feel seen in taking the kids.
Is there a way, do you think you could have handled it with praise, or do you think you needed to do more?
No, you had to show up. And there's ways of showing up that I could have done better, but I was exhausted and overwhelmed at the time too, but for other reasons, But I missed one of my biggest regrets.
The magic you were doing at the Magic Castle.
But one of my biggest regret about those years is I wish I just had more respect for how hard the things she was going through really was.
Yeah.
Like how tough it really was on her psyche.
Yeah.
And I tried my best, to be supportive and everything, but it was just deeper than that. And she's a great person and all that stuff. And we worked on our marriage for a long time, but even when you work on it, you can intellectually work on something, but some things, they just work against you. Some of those dynamics, are
I mean, that's what I'm wondering is because I don't know how most people do it in terms of. So you're working, you're high up at shows or created shows. Yeah. You're working 12 hours a day, probably
14 sometimes.
Yeah, 14. And then you get home, and how then? You know what I mean? Like what's the solution? Would you?
Not a lot of good
did you get a nanny? Could you?
Would
a nanny have help?
We had help, absolutely, but it was still a lot. We had a nanny. We had, she also cooked and everything. We had grandparents nearby, but I think it was more of what it did to her for her identity, And she was very dedicated too. So it's not like she could just hand the kids off. She spent a lot of quality time with the kids, and she worked too. She did voiceover work and that kind of stuff. So it's not like. So that's not quite the solution. It really is. What it is that sometimes people just need to feel that you're with them in a different way that you're not quite doing.
So you feel like you would give it lip service, but it's hard to.
I just didn't relate to it because I thought I was doing my part and she was doing hers.
Yeah.
I thought we were each doing our parts, but she required something different than I required.
Yeah.
I didn't require approving of anything.
I got to say, I don't love being accused of being a bad partner.
Yeah.
I'm not that big a fan, especially when you were working 14 hours a day.
Yes.
Exactly. And you're like,
no, it's a big trigger. Big trigger. Yeah.
That didn't do it?
That was a big trigger. Yeah.
So that was your sort of, that was the thing you had no concept of, and now you said you have a girlfriend that your wife doesn't know about.
No, she knows that. No, she's ex-wife.
No, good. Ex-wife now, but so you have a girlfriend. How are you a better partner now?
Well, I know these things now, our communication is really good, There's some areas where, of course in any relationship, She's very private, so I have to be mindful of the things I say right now.
Yeah.
She doesn't like her business out in the street, but she's great. She's very sensitive. I'm not going to compare the two. Everybody's different, But I think I'm just in a better place right now to be open to something that you don't know that comes up, and then you deal with that,
Not defensive, not...
Yeah, even if you're defensive at first, to get over it and then move on, not to hold on to that, because it's okay. Look, there's nothing wrong with those feelings at first. You just have to move past them. If you hold on to it, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because we all have triggers that are not going to go away.
Yeah, you just have
you have to be in a good relationship with
all
it.
I'm working on is getting through it faster.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is faster. I'll tell you, it's 3 times faster than it was. Still pretty slow.
But that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I'm improving, but it's like a guy who's
What's your biggest relationship issue that alienates you?
I think that's the thing of taking criticism. I don't take it well.
Yeah.
Because I think I always think you're basically throwing away all of my behavior.
Yeah.
And bringing me up on charges for this.
Yeah.
And it's like it's I feel like it's disrespectful to the good stuff.
Yeah, criticism's tough.
Yeah,
I'm not good at it either.
Because I've also been arguing sort of like I mean I have a whole theory about like don't give each other notes. I genuinely will not give her notes.
Right.
I will not give her improvements. I will not give her. It's like just as is.
Right.
It's a restaurant with no substitutions.
Right.
That's the feeling. It's like you like it, cool.
Right.
Is it bearable? Are the bad parts bearable? Because I didn't get in a relationship to change.
Right.
I got in a relationship to enjoy myself. So
right. And men and women, they both have time machines when they start relationships. But women's time machine in a relationship is they want to take you forward through time. So they move that lever. They would say, oh, maybe we'll have kids.
Yeah.
Guy, when they have a time machine, they break the time machine because they want time to stand still.
Yeah.
So they'll hide the lever that pushes it. Close the doors.
Right, but
they're
I
both
don't
time machines.
She knows I don't want kids. She has kids, so I'm like involved there.
How old are her kids?
4. He's one. It's one child and he's 4.
Oh, okay.
So
that's young.
So there's the
good job, Daddy.
Yep, and so
he's forgotten his old daddy already. Yeah.
Forget it. So I guess that's the thing I don't do well with, and is criticism, because it just feels like I'm good. Stop it. This is good. Stop. And I am in favor of breaking the time machine, because we're not moving toward anything.
Right.
I'm not doing that. I'm not going to have kids. So.
Right.
I'll help you with yours, though.
Are you going to get married? It's not that meaningful?
Nope. Never been meaningful to me.
Right.
So
because marriage to you,
but I'm totally committed. That I just think it's fake security. It's like TSA.
Mm-hmm. What if it's security to the other person?
It's TSA. It's fake security.
But what if it's fake security to you, but real security?
It's never going to be real security. It's
but what
not
if it's real to them?
I don't care what you perceive. I can prove to you it's not real security. All I have to do is call a lawyer and it's over.
Right.
So that's not real security.
And you would have to pay something called alimony.
Right, but I would have a prenup.
Right.
So there is no security in a Neal Brennan relationship. You ain't getting it. No, there is security in that I'm committed to you, but I don't need the government's help.
Okay.
Or lawyers.
Do you find any value in saying vows in front of people?
No, I don't. I understand how it, as a Catholic, I understand guilt.
Yeah.
And I understand shame, but I don't.
Societal pressure.
Yeah, I don't do well with doing. I mean, the blocks was about like all these things I'm supposed to do that I cannot do. I'm not good at them.
Did you grow up Catholic? Did you say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
12 years, altar boy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did the same thing.
Yeah. So, like, I'm very familiar with with institutional pressure.
Marriage is a sacrament in the Catholic Church.
At least. Thank God. So I get what it is. I just don't think it's worth anything.
Yeah.
In and of itself. I get that it's insurance.
Right.
If you have a kid with somebody, you absolutely they deserve protection.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I'm not going to, so it's like, I don't need this thing of like, well, I've done well, so then if we get divorced, you get half. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me, and you can't make it make sense. People try.
I would never.
No, I know you wouldn't try, but others have tried them.
Yeah.
I'm on the
Neal train.
Oh yeah, you have a girlfriend for 7 years, so you get it. Guys, spring is in the air. The weather's warming up, and I'm most looking forward to taking longer walks in a nice t-shirt like I'm doing right now. LA doesn't get cold, but it gets a little cold. You know what I mean? And once it warms up a little bit, I'm talking about like a dusk walk, where you don't have to wear a jacket. You feel like you did something right in life. And I'm looking forward to it even more because I've started using Mando whole body deodorant. I haven't even started. I've been using it. Unlike other deodorants I've tried, it can actually handle anything. I mostly am a Mando in the pits guy, occasionally on the back a little bit, but the thing I like about Mando, doesn't stain the t-shirt and it lasts all day. I've told this story before. I switched to a different I ran out of Mando. Now they still have a Target, by the way. I'm like proud of them. And it's just a solid deodorant. It's a little fresh. I like Mount Fuji, of course. Everybody knows that. It's a great deodorant. The whole body deodorant is safe to use anywhere on your body, and I mean, ding, anywhere. Pits, where are you going to do it? It's all safe, and but whatever you got to do. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, which I've used, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code NEAL at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy can feel like a big investment, but the state of your mind is just as important as the state of your physical health. I'm assuming you take care of your physical health. This is the therapy podcast. I've benefited. It helped me draw boundaries, helped me understand codependence, helped me with pretty much every female relationship I've ever had, a lot of writing partnerships I've had. You can just, you're never going to get worse. You know what I mean? I've never laughed and been like, what a waste of time. It's not just for people who've experienced trauma. Here's the thing about BetterHelp. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. It's a lot of people. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. Plus, switch therapists at any time. Here's the call to action. It's mandatory, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/NEAL today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/NEAL. BetterHelp. What other unpopular opinions or things that you didn't know or things you've changed your mind about?
Maybe God.
Go. I'm interested because I have also.
So I grew up Catholic. I was altar boy just like you. Mm-hmm. I had a very firm, in my mind, understanding that not only did a God exist, but a kind of an idea that he existed within the framework of the religion that I was inside
Old
of.
man.
Yeah. Whatever those
beard,
are.
Yep. Clouds.
And even Catholicism, it's kind of convoluted. There's three of them.
It's the worst story ever told.
There's 3 persons, but it's like one
I was
thing.
at church the other. I literally, I went to church with my mom, and it was like, this is the most convoluted storytelling
it is.
I've ever fucking heard.
No,
the fact that they called
sense.
the greatest story ever told, it's like, guys, this isn't even in the top 1,000.
Yeah, and the fact that modern Christianity is really built on cannibalism. I mean. Every week it's like the body of Christ going into your mouth.
Incredibly bizarre,
and it's not, by the way, it's not symbolic of his body.
No.
It's not a symbolism.
It's been transmuted to not, there is
you
no
are
metaphor.
Actually, the idea is you are actually eating the actual body of Christ. So it really is, it's not even a joke. It actually is cannibalism.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's pretty crazy.
It's one of the many things it's bananas about.
Transubstantiation, that's
there
the
you
name.
go.
Yeah.
another very
first
convoluted
chance.
term that's unnecessary. They didn't need to. Did you? So what? So then you fell out.
I would call it agnostic for a while. I was kind of searching. I went to a Protestant church for a while. I had when I was doing stand-up, I had a manager. She was very, that Christian, where they want to, sign people up type of stuff. So I went to her church for a while. Really nice people and stuff, but it wasn't quite for me. And so I stopped going. And then when I met my wife, she was very Catholic. She comes from a very Catholic family. And so I started going again. And I thought, once we had kids, I thought, well, it's good for me to go because it's good to give the kids something, and then they can make up their own minds.
Do you still believe that? That they need a moral framework from a religious organization?
I think there's value in it. Yes.
Okay.
I think it's
more value than not.
Yes, correct.
Okay, fine. Because I wonder.
Well, then good luck choosing where they get their moral framework,
Well, I've spoken to people that didn't grow up religious, and they were like, yeah, you just get a moral framework from like your parents and the world.
Good luck having the right parents.
Okay, fair. Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. But you don't have to necessarily count on the right parents if there's a framework that enough people agree on. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you may have to get lucky with that. Who knows? It may be a horrible religion that gives you a bad framework. I don't know. But I think at the right time, they can make up their own mind about things just like I did, because I'm not going to pressure them with it or that sort of thing. But, when they're young, they can grow up in it. So I went to church faithfully during all that time. And then once they were older and stuff, I stopped going so much. And then something happened to me. This was the moment that happened, because I'll never forget it, where I remember having discussions with people about it and arguing back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And still feeling that I was kind of agnostic. And I had Neil deGrasse Tyson was on my podcast, and I was asking him questions about everything. And I'm kind of a contrarian sometimes.
This is fairly recently then.
No, this was back in 2016.
That's not, fair.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
2018.
Yeah.
2018, I
so
think.
that's,
Yeah, fairly recently.
Yeah.
And I asked him that question I said, what is life? Like, what happens when you die? Because I've always been obsessed with death a little bit too. And he broke it down in such a granular, molecular way that it just fucked with me, and I was like, fuck, you're right. I mean, that's really what happens. You are absolutely right. That's what I didn't keep saying that, but I remember it fucking with me for days, and I'll just never forget that feeling. And then I just started thinking of God differently.
What's the short version of what he said?
Well, he just explained life on a very molecular level, like matter, just deteriorates and, turns into this and that, and the molecules do this. He just said it very coldly of what actually happens, and, you're trained to think spiritually and that type of stuff, and then the soul and all that stuff. Yeah. And then when I thought of it like that, I was like, wow, it just really hit me in a way where it's not like that was new information. I think it just hit me at that time in a way that I wasn't counting on.
And it made you believe in God more?
No. I wouldn't say I became an atheist, but I kind of...
Your agnosticism got stronger?
Yes, that's what I would say. I always said, I'll take Pascal's wager, you know, and that sort of thing. But because even if you're an atheist, you're believing in something. You're sure about something.
Yeah.
You're sure, in that case, you're sure about the non-existence,
Yeah.
So I'm more agnostic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Shows up, good on you,
Yeah.
But right now, probably not going to happen.
All right, well, the question because I went kind of the opposite way, where I was agnostic atheist, and then I took ayahuasca and sort of experienced the God, right? And I haven't been able to shake it in a good way.
Okay, say that again?
I experienced a God or a central creation force or a interconnectedness that I have in a drug experience, ayahuasca and DMT and MDMA, and I have not, and mushrooms, and I have not, it has not faded.
Oh, how long ago was that?
The first one was 4 years ago.
Oh, so very recent.
Yeah.
So why do you equate that feeling? Why does that equal to a God thing, as opposed to just
the feeling it was a feeling of a God. It was a feeling of a central creation force.
What is a God feeling?
Something turned this on, and I felt connected to it. to
So
the
something
to the
that
spirit
wasn't
of
yourself.
yes.
That was something, some force there that
Yeah.
was in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I couldn't sell anybody on it because it's something I experienced.
Yeah.
So, and I don't need you to not eat meat, or I don't need any.
Well, that's a religious thing.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel more spiritual?
It makes me entire. It's the only I had this experience, and then I watched an interview with Sting. He did ayahuasca, and he said,
"This is the only genuine religious experience I've ever had."
Yeah.
It was like I hadn't had one. He grew up some kind of, I think, Christian.
I'm brought up Catholic.
And then it was basically like, oh, this is what they said church was. Mm-hmm. I actually experienced it.
Right.
And I've heard people say like the body of Christ is ayahuasca, like it's based in that and tribal and da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. It's got 10 different precursors,
right?
Whatever, but Christianity, or Catholicism. But the only spiritual experience I've ever had, and it's been continuous, and it makes it change my life. But it's not. I don't proselytize. I don't. It's just like it changed my experience,
right?
But I don't.
And it doesn't translate to a religion or to, there's no personification of it.
No, there's no, it's not organized. It's not, I don't need
it's
to.
It's a thing. It's
yeah,
like
it's an experience and a thing I think I feel.
Sure.
So
no, I get it. So part of what I remember reading the book Sapiens, which was another big influence on some of my thinking on this. One of the things that was real fascinating about that book was the idea of what a myth is, and how
the best one being money.
Yes,
in that book,
it's fantastic.
Money being like, no, it's just a thing we all agree to,
yes,
but it's not.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah,
the fact that we're all agreeing to something, and the power of that, and it's why you can have groups and larger groups, right? With myths. But when I was thinking about religion, and what I felt is one of the true reasons for having a God, let's say, because religion goes back so far. In fact, one of the first things was the sun. People just worship the sun just because it created life, you know, which they're not wrong. You know, it's true.
Take nothing away from the sun.
Right. But when outside of pure idolatry of something that's doing something and you're thinking it, which is one type of religious activity, which I think was the first type.
Yeah.
The advancement of that is that I am not just a corporal being, that I have a place after this, right? That's an advancement in religion. The Egyptians are the most famous for that first, which is why they built the mountain, all that stuff, right?
The idea of an after party.
Yes, exactly. Now, to me, so I feel that primarily has been invented because humans are one of the, I'll say rare animals, because I don't know if other animals can do this, but we can actually reflect. We can do more than think. We can actually reflect. We haven't seen that other animals can do that. Maybe dolphins can, It looks like dogs can, right? But, we don't just act by instinct, we have a lot of time on our hands. Even so, our brains have developed to that part. And one of the most dire reflections is death.
Yes.
Okay? So animals act out of instinct because they're trying to avoid death. Their body knows how dire death is, and they try to avoid it at all costs by eating, by killing, by all these things, But we can actually ruminate on the darkness of what death really is and how much despair. There's so much despair in the idea of not being here at all.
Yeah, not existing,
That you almost have to create a way out of that.
You'd be a fool not to.
Why would you not? Exactly. So that makes complete sense to me, that an afterlife would be created to deal with the despair of thinking, not only are you not going to be here, you've only been here since you came out of that womb.
Yeah.
Like there's this short amount of time.
Yeah, it makes
you are
total
a conscious
sense.
being and you're just gone. You're just wiped out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like the death row conversion. It's like, wow, so you're going to die in an hour and you just realize you're gonna die.
It's done.
So now you're interested. I find myself where I'm like, Neal, well, I am getting older. Maybe it's just pure self-interest, or people that stop getting hired in showbiz and go like, showbiz is stupid and shallow.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing is I'm entirely comfortable admitting that may be it.
Yeah.
And I don't really. The all I can say for myself is it's not cool, like believing in something. Like there's not, and no one thinks I'm cooler because of it. Like there's not
funny.
There is the self interest of like, I'm not, when I die I don't die.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. There's no way for me to. There's no code of behavior that I need to follow in order to get there or any of that. Because that's the other thing where you go like, oh, this is man-made.
Yeah, and I'm not the spiritual cop, nor do I have spiritual envy. Like I don't have food envy. Like somebody's eating something, I care less. Eat what you want, But some people are like, you're gonna eat that? Oh, you eat meat or this is why you got to be a cop? Who the fuck gave you permission for that?
Yep.
So it doesn't threaten me if somebody believes in something, nor do I feel like I have to convince somebody of something. Yeah. For me, it's just kind of an observation that I have. But I still leave room open to be wrong like I do with everything, Yeah. But I find it fascinating that, and now, so I have a different relationship with the afterlife than I had before, I guess is the short thing. So before, I was certain there was an afterlife. Certain.
Even as an agnostic, or?
I felt there was a good possibility. Like I felt, if anything could explain the phenomena of ghosts,
right? Which, okay, so you do believe in ghosts.
Some of that is like, is ridiculous, but there's some things that might have some meaning to it of maybe, seeing something or something maybe.
Have you had any experiences?
I've had different things that are unexplainable. I can't remember if there have been any visionary things, but I've had unexplainable events for sure. But so that's why I say I have room for those types of things or whatever. They're even the whole idea of the communion of consciousness, I guess you could say, or whatever. Where there's a certain consciousness. It's not just culture which has been passed down, but kind of a consciousness which has been passed down. I mean, there's a theory where people feel they can tap into that or something like that.
Or people inventing things at the same period.
I call that clustering. I firmly believe in that. Clustering is amazing.
People that weren't connected before the world was connected. People inventing things.
Amazing.
What happens in comedy too.
Absolutely.
Where somebody will think of a bit and then I thought of a bit.
Yep.
I tweeted it and then somebody had tweeted it the day before. Someone I didn't follow. Somebody. And it was just like. They accused me of stealing, and it was like...
Look at the Renaissance. The Renaissance had all those great painters at that same time in that part of the world, you know, and, and music and all that kind of stuff. So it happens in science. It happens in art. I've always called that clustering, where there's a shared kind of consciousness that happens. Like if the Wright brothers had not invented flight, I mean, in France, they were doing the same thing. There were a couple of guys in France doing the same thing. So it would have happened around the same time. Maybe
would that be part of the, maybe there's something to a God or a spirit world?
Maybe something more of a spirit or like energy thing that you're talking about, because there are a lot of physical laws that we are not aware of yet.
I know. Yeah. Most we're not aware of.
So let's say if we think about our thoughts really are a collection of electrical impulses that are in a vehicle that has the ability to store those electrical impulses and allows us to continue talking and remember things and all that kind of stuff too. Well, if they are electrical, we know that, we've seen the way impulses can travel through the air and be connected to things because we've seen that. We've invented radio, we've invented telegraph, all that kind of stuff. So maybe there is a way that things are connected in ways that we can't see that are on, I don't know, different physical level that we don't know. Like I insist that everything's connected just because everything has molecules in it and atoms, right? So when you think about it, like I'm really touching you right now because everything's connected,
Well, that's what I was going to ask is do you believe that science is deciphering God?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe that right now, but I've heard arguments for that, and I have no problem with that argument. I feel that what science does for us is a way to, understand the universe and understand how systems work. But for me, I don't think it's deciphering God. No.
Okay.
If something was going to decipher God, I think that would be the role of religion.
I actually totally
Like it's got a scientist?
I totally disagree with that. That part I completely, because I don't think religion to me is a way of honoring God. I think it's all silly, but like it's as if God needs whatever. Like God's very insecure and you need to speak well of it. It's like silly.
Or people make God their butler, saying,
yeah, exactly.
Jesus,
would you
take
mind?
the wheel,
Yeah,
just like you take the wheel.
I invented the car, you
Yes,
fucking
exactly.
asshole. So I don't find religion to be it's almost completely not related to God to me in a way. But my question
I think
is,
science is the opposite, to be honest with you. But some people disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I know what they mean, but I'm inclined to think that it's deciphering. Nature is God, and it's deciphering whatever.
Sure.
Did your life get better as a result, or worse, or push?
But saying nature is God is making a different statement than having God as a separate entity than nature, because you either believe God invented nature, which means God is not nature. God actually created nature. But if you say nature is God, you don't really need God because you already have nature.
It's all one thing.
Right. But you don't need God if you already have nature, if it's one thing. If there's no distinction, why do you need God for? You already have nature. Like I always say that with people with the
distinction.
Words. They say, it's hot in here. I think it's humid. Well, pick your lane here. Which one?
I don't think
It's cold.
I think it's all one thing.
Yeah. It's red. Yeah.
Like you're God, I'm God, that's God. It's all God. If that it's whatever.
Right.
It's beyond esoteric. But so did your life get better or worse or push going from agnostic or deep?
No, there was no. I have a set of values that I live by that guide my life more so than what I believe in is true out in the universe.
How much of it's informed by Catholicism, do you think?
Oh, a lot.
And are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because there is something to be said for like it is obviously parts of it are so useless and just like
you can make fun of the Ten Commandments, but there's a lot of good things.
Yeah,
in the Ten
exactly.
Commandments.
Like
yes.
8 of them are,
and
something.
Both of those are true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely material for jokes. Absolutely.
Sure.
And at the same time, there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Really good stuff that Jesus said, and there's a lot of stuff that's ripe for jokes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Both of those things are true.
Okay, so that's very interesting that you've gotten less faith-based or whatever.
Well, I don't know if faith-based
or
the actual belief in that being, isn't necessary for me,
Yeah.
Right.
Does that not contradict your moral framework for children?
No, because those are rules that are religious based, Now, if your only reasoning for doing that is to please God, then that's the connection that you have. And so once you get rid of that, you say, well, I don't have to please God anymore. If that's how you're viewing it, then fine. But if you have a framework for living that is a solid framework, well, why would I abandon that,
Yeah, and you are, it is not based on pleasing God. It's just like,
Correct.
I don't know, it's just not being an asshole.
Well, also, the way that Catholicism was always different for me from Protestantism is like, I always felt like Protestantism, you were going to get something from God. It's that same type of thing, sitting in the pews. I hope the preacher has a good message for me today, But Catholicism is all about service, It's so service oriented, and that's one of the things I've always liked about it. In fact, a lot of the activities of the church around the world are based in service.
Have you ever...
Like you're taking the attention off yourself.
Sure. Have you ever abandoned yourself in a way that you regret in service of others?
I wouldn't say in service of others, but it's part of that period I was talking about where I had forsook myself for so long in terms of what my real emotional needs were and expression and all that stuff. And the learning of that was a huge, big deal for me. So it wasn't explicit as doing it in that way.
Did you find that...
But I've never done it in a practical way like that where, in the way that I think that you're asking.
Well, no, I've just done it. I mean, I think women probably do it more than men, but But the service...
Yeah.
All service all the time.
Yeah.
And then you end up kind of fucking yourself and you abandon yourself and you end up...
Or you build resentment.
Yeah. Or just or martyr yourself or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's do some actual blocks and not just the ones I threw at them.
Yeah.
You know, you sign up for something, you forget about it after the trial period ends, then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. I mean, you're not using the service. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Thanks to Rocket Money, I can see all my subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones I'm not using anymore. And now I'm saving more money. You see, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money's going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can even help you cancel them. I may have canceled a newspaper that used to be a little more to my... used to die. Democracy used to... whatever. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Here's the call to action. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/NEAL today. That's rocketmoney.com/NEAL. rocketmoney.com/NEAL. Rocket Money. Here's a good bombing story. I went on a date with a woman, second date. I was doing blocks in New York, invited her to come see it. And I think the worst show of the, I don't know how many I did, 60 shows? Worst one I did. And the lady ghosted me. You almost have to respect it. You know what I mean? Look, not every show is good. Not every joke, delivers. But Harry's always delivers. They send the best quality razors right to your door for a fraction of the price of the big brands. Sometimes when I really need to go tight on the neck, I'll use the blade, and I tried Harry's because I know someone who works there, and I paid for it. I did it, and it's real tight. It was inexpensive, and it's just a good razor. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's just a good, like, if you're trying to look at a razor, Harry's is a good razor. And it's a good deal. Like, doesn't feel cheap in your hand. It's like, it's like a nice, I didn't get nicked. I didn't get cut. It didn't feel chintzy. It didn't feel gross. Oh, I also tried Harry's hair gel, which was, not only did I like the pun, I like the product. I'm not wearing it right now, but it's a nice gel. I have some, I got it in my travel bag. It's good stuff. Use it for shows. Oh, when it smells good. Smells fresh. Any other razor like that, they just feel cheap and plasticky. Here's the call to action. Get the shaving products that always deliver. Get Harry's. Normally, their trial set is $13, but right now you can get it for just $3 at harrys.com/Neal. That's our exclusive link, harrys.com/Neal, for a $3 trial set. harrys.com/Neal. God bless. You've got procrastination and messiness, which just seems like kind of similar. Well, all right. You've got procrastination and messiness.
They're definitely related. Yeah.
So what's the downside of messiness? Because I'm pretty messy, but like I don't lose anything for the most part. I don't. Yeah. And I'm a bit of a procrastinator, but everything's been turned in on time, ultimately.
Well, I think people like me who, I'm not big messy, but it can start to get bad, and then I'll correct it or whatever. But I'm usually attracted to someone that's the opposite, and so that's a problem, and so that can push
you being the wrong person again.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
But is cleanliness,
because their cleaning up is not wrong, but mine being messy is,
But is it? You're not doing it against them. This is actually one of my issues with my girlfriend, which is like the things that I am, I was before I met you.
Exactly.
This isn't at you.
Right.
I'm just this.
Right.
It's not I'm not doing it to like spite you. I'm just doing it.
My ex-wife was the extreme of this, and I remember this is how bad she was. And so I'm not exaggerating. There was a newspaper on our coffee table, and she said, the living room's a mess. I'm like, the living room's a mess? Like, the newspaper's on the coffee table. That's it. I said, what are you afraid of? And I don't know if she said this or I'm making it up. She said this, that people are going to come by and see that. I'm like, people are going to come by and see that people live here is what they're going to think.
I used to say to an ex.
But there was the judgment attached to it that you're going to be exposed for being messy to the world. I used
to yell at a girlfriend that she seemed to be afraid that a group of gay jurors was going to come
exactly.
and judge
That's the feeling.
our interior.
That's exactly right.
Like, they're never coming.
Right.
They're not coming.
And I would say, have a seat,
Yeah. Hey, have it. This is a newspaper. I
have you
drop
read the
it
paper
sometimes.
yet?
Yes. I guess that's bad.
Right.
But the church thinks you're all sinners.
Yeah.
So,
and here's the flip side of it, though. Because my parents are more extreme, my father is a bit of a hoarder. I'm afraid I don't want that to happen to me, and my mother she's not as bad as my dad, but I see their behavior sometimes as sadness personified, or like unhappiness personified, the mess.
yeah.
Mess here, mess there. And so that thing makes me not like that, so
Got it.
I would rather not be messy,
Yeah.
So I do, I'm not that all the way, but I'm like messy for a while and then I'll clean, clean is not the right word because it's not like it's dirty, but it's like I'll put things in the right place or have someone to help me do that, But I don't mind my office being a mess because, as you say,
You know where it is?
it doesn't hurt my feelings. That's the other thing. We don't really see it that way because it doesn't affect us emotionally. But for
Women
some people,
are affected by spaces.
emotionally. Oh my God.
They anthropomorphize spaces, I believe. I really believe that. I really believe that women interpret physical
I've never heard
spaces
it like
as they interpret it as a person.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I just don't, as a guy, I don't see it after about a week. I just see like the couch
right.
and the bed and the TV
Yeah.
and the nightstand. It's very stereotypical, but like I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
Because they're very affected by it, and I just don't. I guess if I stay at like a crappy motel, I am affected by that.
Me too.
But I think that has to do with safety.
That's someone else's stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of people's stuff, and a lot of people,
Exactly.
and they haven't treated well, and and it's also dangerous,
Right.
like where you can hear the street, or you can hear the people in the hallway, or you can hear really it doesn't feel very safe. Like that, I'm definitely affected by.
It's like George Carlin's joke: "Your shit is stuff, and their stuff is shit."
Yes, it's funny. You just did Carlin, and you did a bit of a black scent.
Well, I was doing George Carlin. The way
I know.
he does
Well,
that,
he did a little black scent.
Exactly. Your stuff is shit, and this
my
shit
stuff,
is
I'm a
stuff.
jazz guy.
Have you noticed that their stuff is shit and your shit is stuff?
Yeah. All right. So messiness. I'm forgiving you for messiness and procrastination.
Procrastination is in my career, though, like with writing, mainly writing, because like most writers I know, like people say, Larry, why do you write? And I say, because I have a deadline. Like otherwise, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Because it's always painful. It's never not painful.
Yep.
I always feel any writer worth their salt thinks it's going to be horrible.
Mm-hmm.
When I meet young writers who go, I'm great. And I go, okay. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
The writers I respect never utter those words,
Yeah.
Which makes them try to be better all the time, My writing is only good because someone bought it or because other people said so. It's never because I think it's the best, I may feel more fondly about it later, but sometimes it's years later.
Let's play it in front of an audience.
I'll look back and I'll go, oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it
Yes.
was. Like, I never watched, when I did the nightly show, could not watch it. I thought I didn't like my voice. Just didn't want. And then when it was off, I'd watch something and go, that was actually pretty good. You know? I could appreciate it, you know? But I would judge it way too harshly. And I think some of that is at the root of procrastination, because the first part of procrastination is, I think it's not going to be any good, so that prevents me from starting, or prevents me from getting far, let's say,
Yeah.
And then the good thing about a deadline, after a while, the fear of not finishing it overtakes the fear of it not being any good. So then, so then I have to.
Yeah, it's a carrot.
I drop that fear.
It's all the stick gets bigger.
Exactly, and then I'm able to finish something. So that's why deadlines are important to me. Professional deadlines.
I completely
not personal
agree.
deadlines. Personal deadlines, I'm too smart to make those work. Because I go, nah, that's personal. You ain't got shit on me. I ain't got to finish that shit.
Personal meaning. Well, even
Larry,
most
you got to finish this in a week.
I know.
Nah,
Most
nigga, you ain't. Nah. You can't trick me, nigga.
Thank you for using the N word. It's been a while.
I didn't know if Chappelle had been around.
No, I haven't seen him. But that is with a personal being like, meet me at 7. Or
No.
so and so wants it by Friday.
It has to be professional deadline.
Right.
Yeah, and even then, I can be a little cagey with it depending on what it is. But It'll get done, you know.
Yeah.
If I'm in production, everything gets done
course.
on time. Everything is done on time because I'm responsible more than I'm fearful, you know.
Yeah.
But when I'm free, like you say, development, stuff like that, I could take forever to do things. Depends what it is. So I need hard deadlines from bosses who are paying me.
Do you explain that to them?
No, of course not. No.
I'm going to give it up like that. All my power.
Yeah. And there's different types of deadlines. Like if something's going to go away, you know, if you don't turn it in, you know, or you have to shoot on a certain day. Right? There are different types of deadlines, but
and that's kind of where the Catholic thing comes in. I find, speaking of Chappelle, we had real different approaches to punctuality.
Oh, interesting.
Where it's like, it was like, dude, we have to write. Like, we don't have.
Right.
I know we've agreed to do 13 of these in 13 weeks.
Right.
If we don't start writing now, when we were writing Half Baked, he actually said like a year later, we were writing Half Baked. We had to turn it in the next day, and we started watching Hollywood Shuffle. It was on cable, and I was like, if we don't start now, we're never. And he literally was a year later. He was like, "You were absolutely right. We'd still be watching Hollywood Shuffle if you hadn't just turned the television off."
Right. Well, yeah. When I have those kind of deadlines, obviously you can't reschedule Monday. Monday's coming whether you like it or not. You know? So you got it. So I'm more responsible than I am fearful. So when I'm in the position where I have to get something done, like being a producer or writing a movie that's going to shoot, definitely I'm showing up, getting it done.
Yeah, I just think it's whereas he couldn't, even that didn't mean it that much to him.
That's shocking to me. Yeah,
it's just it's just like a life ethos, kind of like seeing the world, where it's like it's like, you know, we'll go on stage late, go on at 1 a.m. because I don't know. Yeah. It's when I felt like going on, not thinking like people have jobs, and I find it is useful. Yeah. He is a better writer than me. Do you know what I mean? Like he is more talented than me, and I don't know if that has to do with.
Well, it's a different talent.
It's he's better at. I mean, I guess it's different, but I would say like he can throw the ball faster than me. I can throw the ball fast, but he can throw the ball like okay.
I know what you mean.
So I wonder if that governor governs the comedy as well. Meaning like where I think rationally across the board, and it's kind of the basis of my act and basis of things I've written, but it's like he thinks it's all nonlinear. I'm like very linear in a very ideally entertaining way. And he is all nonlinear, including time. Just everything's
That's just
nonlinear.
the way his system works.
Yes.
Oh, that makes sense.
And
that's part of his genius is connecting in that way.
Yes.
Right. I get it.
And it's like, and part of it is you just get shit when you get it.
Yeah.
But it is unique when you're in a system where it has to get done.
This is an old term, but Rolodex, I don't know how to use it. Or like my brain works where it's like, here's the thing. That's those are the two right things that go with that. Like all the information comes down on this side, and all the opposite information.
I call it grid brain.
Or the information that makes this funny together with that.
Yes.
Defines that now. Yep. You know, and that's how, and my brain does it in an instant.
Yes.
You know.
Factual. I can literally say factual setup.
Yeah.
Like twist.
Like you and I are not intimidated when somebody says, "We need you to write 5 pages of jokes." We're like, "Okay,
yeah, I can do that.
No problem." But some people
like 3 of them will be good.
Right. Well, that's not the issue, right? But we know how to do that process. Like you say, read the paper and get some jokes out of this. Read the paper. That's even better.
Yeah,
I don't have to make something up. You know?
Yeah. Having written with him for years, I couldn't tell you how his system works.
Yeah. That's interesting. How does Dave construct a joke? Like, does he start with that big reveal that he's working towards?
I think that's like the last thing.
That happens
I think that happens. I'm not an authority.
Have you helped him in a stand-up?
Not really. If I have, it's like, it's that thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like like
absolutely.
You're giving examples. Here's another example.
That's why you can write for other people too.
Yeah. And I'm sure. Yeah, and you can as well.
Absolutely. In fact, I always could do that better than I could write for myself. And then learning to write for myself took a whole different type of skill set. You know?
I can do both.
Yeah.
But I could explain, I guess I could explain my system, like my voice, but.
Yeah. I was just, remember, better at empath. You know?
Oh, well, no, you have that written
Right.
down. He has written down as a block, empath/sociopath. What does that mean?
Well, I think for that, the empath thing I kind of explained a little bit, but I actually have been an actual empath in some ways, which really kind of shocked me, you know. So
this is you say that as a person who felt like you couldn't feel your own, you weren't allowed to feel your own feelings.
Correct.
And
because someone else's were more important, right?
Right.
So that was the emotional component of it, which is fine. But then there was actual physicalization of that shocked me. When my wife was pregnant, she was about to give birth. This was we had about a month ago, right? And she had a pregnancy during most of the summer, and it was really tough those last few months. Really hottest time. You know, you got this big thing and sunny. You know, we did all the Lamals and all that stuff. But I remember she developed some really bad lower back pain. It's very common, you know, but it can be really debilitating. And I felt sorry for her and everything. But one day my back just started really hurting, you know. I mean, really painful. And I don't mean just a little bit, like I could barely get up type of pain. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I had to think, what did I do? I'm going through my mind thinking, well, and I could not get it. A couple of weeks, like 2 weeks go by. So it did not let up. So now I'm really concerned.
And she still has hers.
Yeah, she still has hers. And I go to the doctor, you know, they couldn't find anything. They were saying stuff like, well, maybe it's pleurisy. I mean, they were saying stuff like that. I didn't even know what that was. I still don't, really.
Yeah, I still don't.
You know?
Don't look it up.
Yeah, it feels like one of those 19th century ailments, you know?
Yeah, it seems like something someone in my mother's neighborhood
Yeah,
had.
like the Artful Dodger would get that. Or something in those kind of things. But could not explain it. It was so painful. So my wife, when she gave birth, it was a little difficult. She had a long labor and ended up being cesarean. Son came out and everything, and he was in ICU for a little bit, having a little trouble, but he did okay, you know. And I remember just sitting in the hospital because she had to stay there for a few days, and I'm going, wait a second. That's weird. My back doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? You know? And it was so weird. And I instantly knew what was going on. Instantly. That I was sharing that pain. My body shared that pain. I instantly knew it, Neal.
That was the last time in that marriage that you've shared your pain with her.
Exactly.
According to her.
But it happened again with our next child. It wasn't as intense. And when it happened, I instantly knew what it was this time. And it only lasted for 2 weeks. It didn't last as long.
Did hers dissipate at all? She
No.
just had the same amount, and you also
Oh,
had
hers
it.
wasn't as bad the second time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was
So
yours
maybe
as bad?
No.
Okay,
It was
that's
not.
interesting.
But I knew exactly what it was when it happened.
Yeah.
Right on schedule.
Yeah.
You know.
And you were like, we got to get this baby going.
She had
So I
cesarean,
went-
came out, gone. You know. And I thought there is something going on here. And so that was physical empathy, you know, not just emotional. That was physical. I'm like, what the fuck is that? You know.
Yeah.
To have the physical manifestation of that is a whole different category,
Yeah.
you know. And I can have that sometimes. I realize when sometimes there's movies and there's emotions and then I start feeling that or that type of thing.
Yeah.
You know? But this is interesting. And I realized I was using a lot of things outside of me to have the things that maybe felt like I couldn't, you know, have permission for or whatever, you know. Because I had emotions, but...
They say about autism that you model other people's emotions, right?
Sure. That could
is
have been
that
it
what
too.
it is, do you think?
It wasn't modeling, it was
Because it seems like it's involuntary.
It was experiencing, you know.
Yeah.
Which is different, you know.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened in as intense a way, you know, but little things, you know, have been that. But the other thing was sometimes things would happen, the sociopath part of it, and I wouldn't feel anything. So like, and I've always been concerned about this. It's not as bad as it used to be. No, seriously, no. This is why I'm a comedian.
No, it's funny. No, I know what you're
like,
saying. I know
if somebody
exactly what you're
dead, like in front of me, I'd start thinking other jokes, you know. Like sometimes I wouldn't be sad. I might be shocked, you know, and like bad things could happen. And it wouldn't hit me the way it would hit other people, and I would be concerned about that. I'm like, how come I'm not feeling this grief that people are feeling or whatever?
Well, then you could tell yourself grief's nonlinear.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know when it could hit you, and it never hits you.
I had a different relationship with it,
Yeah.
It took a couple of events, I think, to truly feel that it's okay to experience those things, because you have those emotions.
It's okay to experience the lack of, or it's okay to experience the actual grief.
Yeah, because those emotions are there. They just didn't have permission to have an outlet. That's what I realized later.
Did you experience them as grief, or do you feel like you're going to experience it all eventually? Do you know what I mean?
No.
You have these inputs.
I've had my this is the past what I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
not so much now. Sometimes that kind of thing can come up, where everybody is feeling something that is really intense about something, and I'm not,
Yeah. Do you eventually feel it? Kind of? Yeah.
Not really.
Are there things that you experience more than other people?
Yeah, that's probably true too. Probably.
It might not be. I mean,
but not in. I'm not an intense feelings person, so like I don't get triggered a lot the way a lot of people get triggered by things. Like some people get triggered so fast,
Yeah.
they get angry, and
Yep.
those things happen. Those lights don't come on fast for me.
anger does for me, but that's about the list.
Yeah.
But I wonder if, I did that joke about
People that are good at something are optimized for that thing and pretty much nothing else, right? You ever play a video game where you make the character and you have like 100 points and you got to distribute it between like dexterity and marksmanship and speed? That's what God does. And sometimes he fucks up.
we have a lot of analytical
Yeah.
and a lot of pattern recognition, and we don't get hyper, emotional about other stuff. I think I understand that it's called sociopathy. I understand that.
Yeah, and I'm being glib when I say
course,
that.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying I think if you don't kill anybody,
Oh no! I'm not a psychopath.
right? That's the next stage.
And I'm not a sociopath, not by any means. But I think what it really is, like culture.
But could you be a moral sociopath?
Sure, it's called a surgeon.
I mean,
that's what they
don't
are.
Don't we need surgeons?
No, surgeons are moral sociopaths.
Yes.
They have to be complete sociopaths to cut human beings open.
Yes. And to think they're great. They all think they're great
and to
at
not
it.
go home feeling fucked.
Yeah, and they lose some of them, and they're like,
their heart's gonna fail in a week.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I should probably tell them.
Yeah. Yeah. But my point, you made my point, which is like, don't we need those people?
1,000%.
Should a
Absolutely.
surgeon who's a
surgeon
sociopath
should not be having intense feelings.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with
it's
that.
a joke I did about I don't want certain people to have a good work-life balance.
Yes.
I just don't.
Right.
Should a surgeon
Quality surgeon. Yeah.
Say again?
A quality surgeon.
Yeah, a real sociopath.
Right.
Should a modern the modern world would tell a surgeon that he needs to get in touch with his feelings, his or her
disagree with
feelings?
that.
Does he or she?
You do not want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so people that date doctors sometimes, he's such an asshole. I'm like, well, what's his name? I'd like to. He sounds fantastic.
Does he have any availability? Yeah. No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Yeah. So I would never be so bold as to say that you and I are like surgeons.
No, I
or
you
that
either.
comedians are like, or whatever. Now, having said that, there's a lot more surgeons than good comedians.
But we are observing life in what we do. We're antennas.
Yeah.
So many times, some artists, being an antenna affects them emotionally, and they emote back. But we interpret is what we do most of the time. We get signals and we go, oh, blah blah blah. And so there's not necessarily has to be emotion with that. It could just be an observation.
Yes, and
there can be emotion, but there doesn't have to be.
I would argue that getting emotional is gonna probably hinder the pattern recognition joke process.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it can help, but I would say 70-30.
Yeah.
It hurts. It hurts 70% of the time. It helps 30% of the time.
I would agree. I'm probably better to be dispassionate about that and then put the emotion in afterwards.
And this is another thing.
It.
Yeah, that you do the fake treacly setup. But this is the thing that I actually sort of not even argue with my girlfriend, but this is the thing where I defend myself, where I'm like, I'm not gonna be that quick to empathy about me. I'll be quick to empathy about other problems in your life. I really like genuine, but if you criticize me, my first instinct is not going to be empathetic about my behavior to you. Like, it's not, I don't have the capacity, but I have other capacities.
Right.
And what I would like, I'm exonerating you from your sociopath.
Oh, thank you. And a lot of people conflate criticism with love, and that is not a good conflation.
And they're called women. Go ahead.
See, see how I'm letting you say that.
I let you have surgery. No, I'll take.
Well, my ex-wife went through that. Where that was a relationship with how she was brought up, and it's so clear when you're not in that context. But many people feel it's a very Asian cultural thing, where especially the tiger mom to the young tiger girl.
It's their love language. It's criticism.
Especially to young girls. Criticism is the primary form of communication that for them is an act of love. But criticism can be very destructive to your soul, to your psyche, to so many things.
What do you feel about the talk in the Black community, or like if you don't instill some sort of physical harm into your child, the police eventually will?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Meaning there's a thing of like, Black parents whipping their children or get the switch or some sort of physical harm. And I'd always heard it explained of like, well, if they don't, the idea is if the parents don't do it, eventually white society eventually will.
I think those things I think are more cultural, and they're more about a time. That's just how it wasn't just Black people. That's how people were punished back in a certain time. Many cultures punished like that with a belt or that type of thing. I mean, Richard Pryor always did the routine with everybody related to that, getting the switch from outside. You had to go get, your own strap to beat your own ass with, which is so true. But because it's not in the culture now, so to me it's more of a
it's a justification.
Parents just have permission to beat the shit out of you, really.
They sure
honestly.
did. You didn't have to be their kid.
That's exactly correct.
They were supposed to beat any child they saw getting out of line.
But believe me, white kids had the shit beat out of them too.
I know.
In many different ways. I mean, my ex roommate, I remember
Gaylord?
His father, he would punch those kids. Do some real physical abuse.
I hope he talked about it in therapy, and then you siphoned it.
Exactly, and a great guy too. And I met him, but
of course,
that was how they how they communicated through physical violence. Yeah,
and they were actually better than their parents. They were less violent than their parents.
Yeah,
somehow. You have here liking to be alone.
Yeah, I thought you would relate to that one.
Yeah,
that one's hard to explain when you're in a relationship. It's really hard.
I know. It's another one of those things of like, this isn't against you.
Yeah, I know.
But
it is. They feel that. Now, my ex-wife, ironically, she felt the same way I did on that. We never had a conflict with that. We could always go off to our own spaces and that type of thing, and that was awesome. That was great. But everyone else I've been with before and after are threatened by that.
Yeah, I guess I just don't believe that anyone has an unlimited appetite for me or anyone else.
I don't even have it. Yeah.
I sleep 8 hours a day to get away.
Exactly.
To take a break.
Exactly.
I actually believe that's what drugs are a lot of people. Is like, get me out of this consciousness for 5 hours. I just don't want to be the same thoughts and the same patterns. Just like, I'll risk death. Yeah. I'm totally willing to risk death to just get out of this fucking this incessant nonsense.
Yeah, for me it's different. For me it's kind of the inverse of that, Notice I say inverse instead of opposite.
You're a smart guy.
For those people out there. It's more to get away from that, so I could be alone. That's really what it is for me.
Get away from other people's nonsense?
Absolutely.
Of course.
And so, because I just need I just need time to be an antenna too. You know, I need input time. Like I want to know what's happening in the world. I want to think about things. Maybe I want to practice a couple of magic tricks. Maybe I want to read, you know, the paper. Maybe I want to do this, and I want to do it alone.
Yeah,
you know, that's the other key is I do want to do it alone.
It goes to the empath sociopath thing. It's like I am, as much of a curmudgeon as I may seem or whatever, I'm very susceptible to other people's energy.
Yeah,
like I will take on. I'll worry that I'm not behaving well for them.
Yeah.
Am I not holding up my end of some bargain I don't know about?
Right.
And I need to, in order to shut that off, I just need to get away from people.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's a lot of people in a room that I don't know, I will always go off somewhere, you know, like I'm not good about, hey, everybody, I don't know you. I'm this, you know, I'm the opposite of that. You know, when I did comedy clubs, you know, I never related to those guys who stayed afterwards, you know, selling eyeballs, you know. Oh, bless Vic Dunlap who did that, but mixing with the crowd. I'd always be off with a couple of people just having a couple of beers and just because I already got the people already. I had that experience with a lot of people. Yeah, that's what going on stage was for.
How do you like?
But after stage was not for that. After stage is for something else. Like,
most of the time when there's a group of people, I'm just worried I'm not. It feels like a wedding where you're like, okay, I gotta go. Or like I'm not. What's the right social situation for you? Because I think mine is one-on-one, but I think some people like 4, some people like 6.
There's no number. It's whether or not small talk is going to take place. That's what the issue is. It would be one-on-one, and it would be the worst thing. I have to get out of here. Yeah, you know, it could be 20, but it could be fantastic because there's some unbelievable conversations going on that doesn't require me to have to explain everything about me, you know. Or
remedial communication.
Yeah,
just
or
like,
whatever.
How was my flight? Let me tell you.
Oh man. So I don't like Christmas parties, things like that. I remember saying this to somebody at a party, and I think I pissed them off. Like, fuck you. Then what are you doing? I said, I can't stand small talk. And I think they thought I was talking about them, and I wasn't. I was making a comment. But I realized, I said, you know what? I don't go to a lot of parties and stuff like that. And I realized because I don't want to, you know. I don't want to stand around and just not talk about stuff. I would much rather meet some friends at a club or a place where we could talk, have some drinks, shoot the shit, you know, do whatever. Like, the fun thing about comedy clubs when I was doing stand-up was hanging out with the comics that I liked afterwards. Yeah. We'd go somewhere and, you know, do all that kind of stuff more so than being around a lot of people in the club type of thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess people would say that that's not antisocial it's like the good news of COVID was introvert got a lot of shine.
Oh man, my son was in heaven. It's like now all the world was like,
yeah.
It was amazing.
And now I think it's more accepted than it was.
That was an interesting time.
Yeah. I really liked it.
There was some stuff I liked, some stuff I wasn't crazy about. There was, it was interesting. It's funny because when you were asking me earlier about unpopular opinions and everything, COVID really exposed a lot of like bullshit generalizations that different sides had, you know.
Give me some.
It really did, you know, like it really exposed how much the left fucking hates, fucking loves rules and loves bureaucracy. They fucking can't get enough of it. Yep. And it's like, stop it, motherfucker. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to put on a mask in my car. Go fuck yourself, you know. I'm not going to put a mask to walk outside, you know. Yeah. It's some of these things are so over the top. Like, you know, now some of it is paying the price, like not being sensible about children and their effect with COVID. It was just sticking to the rules. Yeah. The rules are for everybody. Right. And you're an asshole if you don't go by them. Yes. It was so over the top.
Well, Ezra Klein had a
thoughtful at all.
Very good observation recently about the difference between the right and the left.
The problem on the right is a personality type has become autocratic, and the problem on the left is a personality type is bureaucratic.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's either like groups of people making rules or one strong man.
My philosophy on it is the extreme left and extreme right. The extreme left always takes things too far. They can never take yes for an answer. Yep. And the extreme right just makes shit up, you know? Yeah. They just make shit up, you know?
What do you have health written down here.
Yeah, because I don't take it as seriously as I should. And so that
Have you had any scares?
Not scares necessarily, but concerns.
You don't
here and
experience
there.
fear, so.
Yeah, but I'm on more medication now than I thought I would be on, and it kind of happens instantly. Like you're like
You're on a statin, probably.
all that stuff, and it happens like this. People say, "Are you on a medication?" And you're like, "No, I'm not on anything." You know.
Yeah.
And then a year later, you go, I'm going to try a new doctor and go with this, and you're on 5 medications
Yeah.
all of a sudden. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
You're starting to buy those little pill boxes and everything. And put 'em- it's crazy now.
Yeah, and
And they're not wrong, which is the other thing.
Yeah, it's good, but you wish there was a better way.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, it's diet and exercise, and you
Exactly.
ain't doing that.
I do, but then there are blocks to that. Like I'll do it for a time and then stop, and then I'll do it for a time.
Yeah.
And then, like I need accountability there a lot.
Yeah.
In the way that I need a deadline for writing.
Well,
you know?
yeah. Is it possible to have accountability?
I don't know. See, we're too smart as humans. We're able to figure out that that's what the deal is. So then we combat that. So you really have to use other tools in order to stick to things sometimes,
Yeah.
I created this whole philosophy years ago. I call it creation, and it was trying to give a way to just help clear us up and free us up to do certain things, and to have different relationships, with things. And I've used it sometimes, and it is really helpful, and I pass it on to people and that kind of stuff. But you need to have a way in which to have a proper relationship with something, unless you're lucky enough to have the type of relationship where it's almost like autistic, where that's the rule, I'm sticking to the rule,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some people can do that, and it's not a problem, But the real thing is being able to stick to something when it's the last thing you want to do. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
And so what you have to learn to do is take desire out of the equation and realize that actually what you want has nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with
I'm
anything.
pretty good with it, and I think it's Catholic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with
duty.
what are the rules? Okay.
Yeah.
And they're I only eat sugar 1 day a week.
Yeah. And I go back and forth on that. Like I haven't had sugar for a while and it feels so much better. But then I'll go through months where it's like, all right, I'll just have this.
Yeah.
I need a bowl of Cheerios right now.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I know, and I won't give. I'm guilt ridden enough to just be like, stop. You have to stop.
Yeah.
But it is a unique. Like I quit smoking cold turkey. Like I can just do. I'm vegan.
good.
I'm vegan vegetarian, but mostly vegan.
My girlfriend knows that you're vegan.
Yeah,
By the way,
so, yeah.
she thought that was good.
Tell her
She's
thank you.
vegetarian though.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
She's weak.
No, she's Indian actually. She's been that way her whole life.
They started it.
You're a baby vegan.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I guess my question is how is my final question maybe is how has your life been? You think it's been how do you gauge it, and did it go well, and are you pleased with it? Are you happy? Or is happiness even a thing to you?
If you know me and know the type of person that I am, I'm naturally a very happy person, and my happiness comes from gratitude, So I operate out of gratitude more than anything else. I lost my brother a few years ago, Brother Mark. And
very funny comic.
So funny.
Yeah.
I miss him dearly, think about him all
I can
the
only
time.
imagine, yeah.
But the biggest tool to help me get through that was gratitude. Gratitude for him being here, gratitude for all these things. Gratitude is the one saving grace that can help you in your life, because I sold bookstore to door once when I was in college, and it really kind of changed me in a different way. It was an earlier change in my life. That set me on the course to be able to be a stand-up, choose a career for something. And I remember I spent a week where it was kids from all over the country met in Tennessee for a week, and you did this kind of training, and then they'd send you to another part of the country, and I ended up going to Rhode Island. But that week in Tennessee was a huge week in my life. It changed my life at that time. I'll never forget it. And in fact, sometimes I'll say hi to my project manager from that time. Like I'll see him and so I'll say, hey, Larry, Tom McAuliffe, if you're listening, Tom. But there were sayings there that were those Zig Ziglar sayings and all that kind of stuff, which some of those are kind of trite, but some are very powerful. And
I thought about what you said, which is like, don't be sad that it's over, be glad that it happened, or whatever it is. And it's so fucking corny. Yeah. And yet that's helped you with your brother dying.
Yeah, there's reasons why some of those, exist, and there are a couple that stuck with me. One was, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The other one was more people spend, people spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do planning their lives. That type of thing. And it just helped me to put into perspective gratitude at that time and that type of thing. And I've always tried to live out of that. But so I don't need help to be happy. I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
I have to fend off things that are going to affect the happiness, as opposed to some people, it's the opposite. They're in a world trying to find happiness. And
Yeah.
That's real sad to me.
What is the, that makes you sad. What is when you say you come from gratitude, what does it feel like or what's it sound like within you? And do you know what I mean? Like, what is it? What about what do you remind yourself of? I literally have I talk about it all the time. I have a journal checklist where I write down, basically like coach myself a few times a day. And one of the big things is like, I am lucky beyond measure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So part of my philosophy is that you have to take emotions out of the equation and turn things into actions. Actions are more important than emotions. Okay. Like when you're not sure, people who are not sure what they want, look to what you're doing. What you're doing is what you want, actually.
Yeah.
That's actually what you want. It's your actions. Good luck trying to want something else than what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
It will always tell you if you're confused about what you want. Look at what you're doing. That will tell you.
It's a good way. It's also a great way to gauge other people's what they say and what they're doing is like
abuse.
Don't
is a
say
big
anything.
Thing of that. I love you, baby, but
yeah,
I'm gonna hit you.
I don't care what you say.
Right. So if you operate out of that, actions can help you first. So practice gratitude in actions as opposed to trying to have a feeling of gratitude. So tell people thank you for something. Make sure you show people that you're grateful for something that they've done. Do surprise gratitude, that type of thing. So communicate with people about it. So do the action of gratitude first.
And does that mean, so you would say it's telling someone you're grateful? I wouldn't consider that an action, but it
is.
Okay.
It actually is.
I guess I would because it's words. I'm like, well, it still feels like words, but I guess.
But you're giving this to somebody else.
Yes.
So you're giving them a gift by saying that.
Yeah.
When you're thanking somebody, that's giving them a gift.
Yeah.
That's what that is. And because we're humans, those words have meaning for us, and so it affects us on an emotional level, right? So, but it's the action of doing it. Gratitude can operate in many different ways, but you can't just say I'm grateful. You can do that at a certain point, and you can have an understanding of that. But it helps to act on gratitude first. What does gratitude look like? How can I express it and that type of thing? And then you can always remind yourself of it, by platitudes and that sort of thing. Oh man, so happy this thing happened, or I'm glad it was this instead of that. I'm happy to have this. I have my health. All those things that old school people used to do all the time. It's really helpful.
Yeah.
And if you start with that, then you have room for the negative stuff that's going to come. Because you're already starting in such a good place. But if you start neutral, it's hard because the negative stuff's going to come.
Yeah.
And you're not like trying to convince yourself or anything. You're just saying the obvious about something. Of course you're happy for this and that sort of thing. So that's what I try to start with in my life. Sometimes it's not that explicit, but it's my point of view of things.
That's a great starting. I mean, I wish I'd known that sooner in life.
I'm very lucky in that because I've never been an unhappy person. I've been troubled by things, and I've always felt happiness is a choice. It's something you can choose to do.
I know it's my mom used to say that, and it was so aggravating. And then once you choose it a few times, you're like, I can't believe I just chose it.
I know.
It works. It's so so disappointing. It's disappointing in a way because you want to feel sorry for yourself.
Right.
And it's like, no, you can just choose to be in a good mood.
Yeah, you can.
And it'll stick. It's so stupid.
It's true. And if you choose to be in a bad mood, you're affecting other people too. So you're saying, I want you to be in a bad mood too.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I write in my journal. It's like, don't inflict your mood on people, including yourself.
No, it's true. Because your body will believe it. Whatever you tell your body, it's going to believe it.
It's a Nate Bargatze joke of how dumb our brains are.
So one part of your brain is smart, and the other part is dumb. You can trick your own brain. That's how dumb the dumb part is.
I like Nate. He's very funny.
He's great. So you've had a great life and it's going pretty great.
I have nothing to complain about. You know, I've had ups and downs like everybody else, you know, but I'm very grateful for the life that I've had, you know. Yeah, the two best things that come out of my life are my kids. I love them very much and they love me. I mean, what if that's all I had, you know, done.
Yeah.
Done, you know. Somehow it worked out well for me. You know?
Yeah.
It's not the money, success is not the thing that makes me happy. That was something I wanted to do and I'm grateful for it, you know. But the happiness is the lessons that I've in life that I've been able to share with the kids and my family and that kind of stuff. That's the thing that drives my happiness more than anything else and promotes it.
It's the connection.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Human connections with people. Things that make me happy with, and it's funny because I want to be alone sometimes, but because I need space to, you know, for myself, so then I can
think
with
of shit
people.
to tell people.
Yes, exactly. Plan libs is what I call them.
That's what Larry Wilmore, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
On the Box Podcast. Shake on it.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
That was great.
It was fun.
Good talking.